Hello, welcome back to the Personal Transformation Experience podcast. Today we are talking about the key strategies to communicate effectively and be taken seriously by others. Have you ever tried to talk, whether in a group setting or one-on-one with somebody, and found that you rambled or were a little bit off track, or perhaps weren't able to get your message across to somebody?
Yeah, this is not my area of expertise at all.
You say that, but one of the things that was great for me earlier today is you were able to look at me in a group setting, in a meeting setting, and see how I showed up and nail the feedback for me.
Yeah, that I can do. I can easily assess because that's what I do, right? As a educator and a person who, as a coach, working with families.
You are an effective coach. I will give you that.
I'm an effective coach, and I observe and I pay close attention to human behavior and nuances and of it. So that's why I was able to do that. But for myself, like, I would really need somebody else, or I would have to record myself and watch myself and then assess myself, because this is not something I excel at.
So why are we having this discussion today? For me, I discovered that effectively communicating, especially in leadership settings where I have to communicate with and to other senior and executive leaders, I have a weak spot. I have a blind spot that I didn't realize until I watched myself in a meeting playback.
Yeah, I think one of the most powerful biofeedback strategies to assess how you show up in any given situation is to record yourself and then watch yourself.
Yeah. And it was
That's
amazing.
Powerful stuff. Yeah. I mean, I need help in this area too, even though, as a coach, or if I'm with a group of people and I'm helping somebody else be a better coach, I need to be able to communicate clearly and effectively as well.
And I did not realize the extent of the deficits I had in this area, because for me, there's been many times where I've showed up well in front of a room. I've prepared a presentation, say it's an educational piece, and I show up as a subject matter expert. I am clear, I am articulate, I pause at the appropriate places, I ask questions, and people walk away feeling, wow, what a phenomenal presentation. But for me, like a hitter in baseball, I've really been able to hit one pitch, which is a presentation to a large group that I'm fully prepared for. Where I have struck out, and I see that very clearly now, is times where I've been asked to be a participant or a partial leader, say in a meeting setting, where I have to, one, convey ideas and lead a group to an effective decision, through an effective decision-making process. And I see now where I've rambled on, used phrases and words and even hand gestures that didn't support my credibility as a leader. And all of this is so appropriate right now because I am taking a course from the Kellogg School of Management relative to strategic communication for leaders. And this week's module is all about showing up as a credible leader. If you can't show up as a credible leader and communicate effectively in group settings where decisions are being made or people are being asked to weigh in on decisions, guess what? You're not going to be an effective leader. So this has been a big wake-up call for me, and I realized I need help. And I appreciate you supporting me and helping me watch and calling out these areas. But for our audience, I believe it would be helpful for them to understand what are the areas where people commonly miss when it comes to effectively communicating. And I think one of them, and we saw this on the call we watched with me, is how people use their hands.
Yeah, I looked this up because I'm a huge proponent of body language and gestures and how they communicate the unspoken word. And because I work with people who are nonverbal, right? So I need to know what they're trying to convey to me so that I can read them and I can understand them and I can help the parents understand how they're communicating.
That's right. Yeah. If you're working with somebody that's nonverbal, it's super critical to pick up on body language.
Body language and communication. So, but when I looked up, gestures, hand gestures or gestures during a speech to make it more impactful, there were several things that I would like to highlight. Purposeful movement while speaking that makes your message more impactful. So, open palms. So when you're talking, and you're trying to make a point, you want to have your palms open.
Why? What do open palms
So
signify?
open palms signifies trustworthiness, and a sense of honesty, and it projects sincerity. So when your palms are open and outward, because that's, if you're like fisted and your hands are together, or, close to your chest, people don't get the projection, the idea that you're being honest and trustworthy if your hands are closed, because it represents a closed communication. So this is open.
So one of the things we observed me doing was holding my head in my hands, or doing this,
Right.
or pulling at my beard.
Yeah.
What do you think about those things?
Those things are distracting, and it shows that you're struggling to pay attention. You're touching your face because you need to. It seems like, to me, it's a sensory thing, but that's my perspective, right? So I'm coming at it from, I wonder why he's doing that. It seems like it's a sensory thing. Why, though? What's the function of the behavior?
Yeah.
Like, I'll recognize that it might be sensory, but the function is do you need the input at the time? Or are you like bored and you want this person to stop talking? Or do you have a thought and you're like itching to say what it is, like that's, who knows, but it doesn't convey a sense of you're paying attention or you're with them in the moment. Right. So, cause you have to, like, you're doing something else. You're playing with your hair, and it doesn't really also come across as confident.
Yeah.
And I think there's different kinds of gestures. So when, like, descriptive gestures, or when you're trying to make a point and you want it to stick with your audience. So if you have like 3 points to make, first of all, second of all, third of all, number 1, number 2, number 3, that sticks.
Right.
Because you're using your hands to count and point out and exemplify, like, sort of use a exclamation point on those points. Number 1, number 2, number 3. 1, 2, 3.
And I also feel in the example,
this is impactful too.
it is impactful.
Yeah.
Right. But it could also be taken the wrong way. And some of this is cultural too. So you have to be careful.
It is
there.
cultural. And they did talk about
Right.
the cultural piece in what I was looking up. So, but yeah, let me just there's a couple more I want to finish. But like when you emphasize strong and deliberate movements, like a hand chop. Like, I don't know what you would do to represent a hand chop, but like, we are not going to do this anymore. This has to end right now. Or my point is, this person was in this place at this time.
That's very emphatic.
Do they have any other witnesses to prove that? Like, an attorney will do this.
Right.
Right? This is what they'll do. This tells you that there's no arguing with this. This is an objective perspective.
Yeah.
Right? So that's one that's pretty powerful. When you want to connect. So when you want to connect with somebody, your palms are out. When you have something personal to say, emotions, you touch your heart. My gosh, that was one of the most devastating things I've ever heard. And I'm so sorry that happened. And that had to be really painful.
I can't believe that happened to you. Are you okay?
Right. So this means honesty. It's personal to you. You're sharing a relatable experience with somebody.
And this is all very interesting to me because you work with neurodiverse people. And for neurodiverse people, they may need some extra coaching around this. Some of these things, this is where they might struggle, and these things may not come naturally to them.
That's true. Or they'll use their gestures and their body language as a means to communicate. And sometimes these kind of gestures come natural to people who don't use words. Right? So you have to see where they are. Like, younger children will have a natural way to express themselves through gestures and facial expressions because you're born nonverbal.
Right.
Right? So these kind of evolve through life with individuals.
Yeah.
So, and then to separate an idea, you do this a lot. I want to point out that these two things, this is over here and this is over here.
Right.
So when you have a learning space, you start here with no skill, and you end up here with skill. And that space in between is that frustrating learning space. Skill, no skill, learning space. So now you're making a very powerful point, and people are going to remember that. That's going to stick. That concept of learning skill, learning space where you begin with no skill and you end with skill, that frustration place in between, that's going to stick with people. And then most of what you do, your gestures should be in this invisible box. So you don't want to gesture in front of your face. You don't want to be like this.
Yeah, and keep your hands, I would say...
from the chest to the stomach.
I should never have my hands on my face, right? Because that looks like surprise. This could look like boredom.
Like you can't keep your head up.
Or... Right. And all those things. So no hands on the head, no hands above the chest. I like that. And that's a good rule because sometimes we're in settings, we forget things. But very simple thing to remember. If you're going to see, even now, I have my hand. Where's my hand? It's up in the air.
Up in the air above your head.
Down,
bare.
Bring it down.
And your fingers together. No. Open palms. You're trying to make a point. And this and this. And then if you want, or you're talking and or somebody else is talking and they're talking to you and you want to make sure you understand them, steeple hands. Or like this, right? So your hands are like this or like this. You're connecting. And you're confident that you understand. They could feel confident that you understand what they're saying if your hands are together.
Absolutely.
Your hands are open and together.
So great stuff on the gesturing, right?
Yeah.
Because you can go overboard and use gestures in a way that distracts or have hand placement that distracts, or you can do things that convey meaning, emotion, feeling. So the other big piece to communicating effectively in a way that is credible is going to be around the word choice that we use and the words that we shouldn't use. And for me, the default ones that I really have to work on are using the word right, using the word so, using the word actually. Well, I actually believe.
Just.
Right. So when you use those words, you say, I think that we should, I would like to, or I'm not certain if you'll agree with me. All of those things, when you make those statements, diminish your power versus statements based on the research I've done. Here's what I've determined, right?
Or here's what I know.
Here's what I recommend that we do based on the information I've gathered.
Right.
Right. That sounds much more strong than after looking at several different viewpoints and hearing from several people and having several meetings and having read and researched this matter extensively, what I really feel that we should do is... You
lost them.
That's what happens.
You lost them right there.
And I've gotten that feedback before that I've lost people. Even in that meeting, I thought about it. I said, how could I do this better? I'm always thinking in my mind, how can I build a better mousetrap? And so now I have to apply it to my own communication style to ensure that I'm an effective and credible leader. And one of the things I realized from that meeting is I could have started out the meeting to say, 1, we are here to X, solve for.
Right.
2, we are providing information to you to help you arrive at the decision that we recommend. And 3, we need to know what other information you may need.
So there's a perfect perspective for you because you're like a math guy.
Yeah.
So you're solving an equation.
Right.
You're solving for X, Y, and Z.
1, 2, 3.
And it has to be equal on both sides. So keep it simple and just solve the equation.
This is why we're here.
Anything outside the equation is...
This is why we're here.
Right.
This is why we're showing you this. Right. What else do you need to make this decision?
Right. I like when... we talked about,
what, if anything else, do you need to make this decision? Right?
Yeah.
And they may say, we're good. And some
Correct.
meeting that took 45 minutes maybe could have taken 3 to 4 minutes.
Yeah.
That's powerful.
That
is freaking powerful
and
because guess what?
Saver,
Nobody wants to waste time. Nobody wants to waste time listening to somebody ramble on when asked a direct question that could have been answered with yes or no.
Yeah.
Or I'll research that and get back to you next week.
Right.
If you don't know the answer.
Yeah. I think another thing that we need to keep in mind is filler words, right? Like, kind of okay.
Right.
Or qualifiers like, I'm no expert. At the risk of asking a dumb question, so this question might not make sense. Well, then it's not going to make sense.
Right. Never diminish yourself in front of an audience.
And don't ever apologize.
It's just my 2 cents. Yeah. No. You were here because you were here. You have a voice. You have a seat at the table because you were an expert. Else you wouldn't be here. So if you've really earned that seat, you never have to have a qualifier.
You don't have to apologize either. You don't have to say, I'm sorry. Even if you fumble your words, excuse me.
Right.
Not I'm sorry, but excuse me.
Let me rephrase that.
Right.
What I meant to say,
right.
Let me clarify what I said.
Right. And the questions like, what questions do you have?
Or don't even say, let me. Just say, I'm going to clarify what I just said.
Right.
Or I'm going
to be clear. Yeah.
I'm going to quickly restate what I said. Or because
I'm
not sure that came out the way I intended it to. This is what I meant to say.
But I'm not sure it came out the way I intended.
Yeah, it sounds a little. So what you don't want to do is sound wishy-washy. Right. Yeah. Do you know what you're talking about or not?
Right.
Because if you go on and on and on.
Just repeat yourself.
Yeah.
Just repeat it. Clearly, if you want to.
But the number one thing from all of this is watch yourself.
Watch yourself. Get that biofeedback. It's powerful stuff.
Record yourself. Yeah. Let other people look at you and sit with people while they give you the feedback too. That was very powerful for me working with you.
Yeah. I mean, one thing I noticed that I do and I see a lot of people doing is, do you know what I mean? Am I making sense? Rather than...
Does that make sense to you?
Does that make sense to you? Like... So what am I, an idiot? Like, of course it makes sense, right? So now...
and then somebody's going to come back and say, I don't know, I thought you were the expert.
Right? So,
and you open yourself up to challenges like that when you make those statements, which is worse.
Instead of saying something like, what questions do you have? I'm interested in your thoughts.
Right. Just taking... And the pause is the most important thing to avoid the filler words. You don't need to have filler words. Just stop talking, pause. If you have to count to 3, whatever it is that you need, pause and allow space for somebody to ask a question, for the information to sink in. And then you can, after the pause, say, what questions do you have? Is there anything in what I've said that requires further clarification?
Right. And for qualifiers, you have to keep in mind, there are strategic qualifiers. I use them a lot because in my line of work, people, there's a fine line between what I'm doing and mental health issues, right? And so a lot of the kids or people in adults, depression, anxiety, and so forth, when they start going down that road, I'm not a clinician. So that's an appropriate qualifier. I'm not a clinician. However, the amount of anxiety it appears to be that you're having or that your child appears to be having might be one that you would seek medical attention for. Go to a doctor.
Right.
Get a medical opinion on. I don't have a background in medicine, or this is not my area of expertise.
And there's no reason to qualify within my humble opinion or
right. No, right. So but you can certainly say, I'm not a clinician, or I don't have a medical background. This is not my area of expertise. I work with behaviors, observable behaviors, and communication.
And it's fair to say, if you're in a group meeting session, a question comes up, say, that is actually not my area of expertise. I'm going to defer to someone else. Right?
Absolutely.
Don't try and answer a question that
you don't know.
Right.
Yeah, people could see
defer
right
to the
through
person
BS.
in the room who should know the answer to that question.
Right.
And that doesn't necessarily make you look weak. It makes you look
intelligent.
Far less credible
if
you try and answer a question and stumble through something that you truly don't have good command of.
And people will know that.
Yeah.
Right. So no, it makes you look like an intelligent person.
And I've been in settings where the expert in the room said, why didn't that person defer to me? Why did they stumble through for 10 minutes when I could have answered it in 10 seconds?
Right.
Fair. Yeah.
Exactly. So what else do you have?
I don't have anything else. So I think the critical key takeaways for me from all of this, and back to what we said in the beginning, the key strategies for effective communication so you can be taken seriously and seen as credible as a leader or whatever role you are in, or in a relationship as a parent, is don't use filler words, pause, ask if there are any questions, be careful with the purposeful movements, make sure that they are intentional and convey the emotion that you're trying to express, and align with your words.
I think honesty and transparency is also an important aspect of that, especially if you're communicating outside of the realm of your professional world. Like if you're with your children or your family or your loved ones, you could be honest and transparent. I mean, everybody's different dynamic in their families, but with your children, I think transparency is one of the most crucial things that you could have with your child, because they will appreciate it. You will maintain credibility with them and respect. There's no reason to not be transparent with
Not at all.
people. I mean, I guess in the workplace, you have to have boundaries, and you're in a professional environment, so yeah, no, you don't need to be transparent
No,
there.
absolutely not.
But yeah, outside that, I mean, there's communication in all different realms, right? So it traverses every area of your life.
And practice presentations in front of a camera, record yourself. We have the great benefit of having smartphones. You can put on a table stand, on a tripod, whatever it is you need to do, record yourself speaking.
Yeah.
But I think the more challenging thing, again, for me is in the group setting. And the only way I'm really going to be able to do that is by those recorded Zoom calls or Teams calls, which were super helpful today. And I wish I'd been doing that since we went to Teams 5 years ago.
Yeah.
But it's never too late to start and do the right thing today. So that's where I'm going from here.
Yeah.
So, all right. Thank you. Thank you for challenging me. Thank you for being my truth teller. Everybody needs a truth teller, someone who is going to hold that mirror up to them and show them what the world sees. So I appreciate you and love you for that.
You're so welcome, honey.
So if you have any questions, feel free to email us at changingtheworldwithinus@gmail.com. We would love if you would like this video and subscribe to our podcast and visit our Instagram page at Personal Transformation EXP. And we look forward to seeing you next week. Have a great one.